Next on the news, hearing arguments, President Biden's student loan relief plan hangs in the balance as the Supreme Court decides its future. Keeping D.C.'s subways safe, how New York's guardian angels are stepping up to help commuters in our nation's capital. Making sure that the past isn't forgotten for one Queens church, how one woman is keeping history alive in tonight's Pulse of the Parish. And the man who, despite having to overcome his own struggle, is helping keep his neighbors safe after a snowstorm. I'm Jessica Easthope. Currents News starts right now. The highest court in the country is tackling the case of student loan forgiveness. Justices are listening to arguments on the plan. But as John Lawrence tells us, Americans want the Supreme Court to hear their voices.
Braving the rainy conditions, a crowd gathered near the U.S. Supreme Court in anticipation of the High Court's decision on the country's student loan forgiveness program.
We all have tremendous amounts of student debt because of the predatory practices of our capitalist economy.
Millions of student loan borrowers could see up to $20,000 of their debt canceled, depending on the outcome of Tuesday's hearing.
What we want to remind American people more broadly is how this program is going to give tens of millions of Americans across the country a little bit of a breathing room that you hear from the president, who says this a lot. That's part of his economic plan.
Critics of the program say the country can't afford to pick up the tab.
We believe that a lot of the inflation is a direct result of bad policies that this president's done through executive order, like canceling the Keystone Pipeline and the student loan debt and things like that.
Two cases are in front of the justices Tuesday. In one, 6 Republican-led states say they would be harmed financially if the program goes into effect. The other involves 2 borrowers in Texas who don't fully qualify for debt forgiveness under the program. I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Since student loan debt is such a major concern in America, let's break down the numbers. A borrower will owe anywhere from roughly $37,000 to almost $55,000. The average student, in order to pursue a bachelor's degree, will owe over $30,000 when it's all said and done. And even after graduating about 20 years later, half of all borrowers will still owe a balance of about $20,000. A pandemic-era boost to SNAP benefits will soon come to an end. Tens of millions of people in 32 states will see less money for their supplemental nutrition assistance programs starting in March. That's because the temporary boost passed by Congress during the COVID pandemic is stopping. The extra food assistance benefits cost around $95 per month. 18 states have already stopped handing out the emergency funds. Developing news overseas, a deal has been reached in one of the biggest sticking points of Brexit, how to handle trade in Northern Ireland. As Nick Robertson tells us, it's the beginning of a new chapter.
So a big political moment for the British Prime Minister, resetting and improving relations with the European Union. There's been congratulations coming from Dutch, Belgian, Swedish Prime Ministers saying that this is a positive step forward. Perhaps the real test, though, for the British Prime Minister is going to be, does his own party support it, and do politicians in Northern Ireland support it? Sunak has sold this as an improvement on the trade relations between mainland UK and Northern Ireland. There are real passions here still about Brexit, and what the Prime Minister is saying is that people in Northern Ireland will be able to get the same products that the people in mainland UK can get. The controls, the customs controls between mainland UK and Northern Ireland will improve, that there will be a red channel and a green channel for goods only going from mainland UK to Northern Ireland, a red channel for goods going from mainland UK through Northern Ireland to the Republic of Ireland, the European Union. He said that was an improvement. And he also said that there'll be something called the Stormont break. And this is a message to unionists, the Democratic Unionist Party, that if they have concerns that they've expressed about too much EU legislation, the influence of the European Court of Justice over laws in Northern Ireland, then there's a mechanism to stop that. But the Prime Minister said that he wanted and understood that the politicians in Northern Ireland should take their time to consider the detail.
I also want to speak directly to the unionist community. I understand and have listened to your frustrations and concerns. It is clearly in the interests of the people and those of us who are passionate about the cause of unionism for power sharing to return. Of course, parties will want to consider the agreement in detail, a process that will need time and care.
But in a clear indication this is not already plain sailing for the Prime Minister, the leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, Jeffrey Donaldson, said that already he thinks that this leaves areas open where the EU still does have influence over laws in Northern Ireland.
In broad terms, it is clear that significant progress has been secured across a number of areas, whilst also recognising that there remain key issues of concern. There can be no disguising the fact, for example, that in some sectors of our economy in Northern Ireland, EU law remains applicable. Where necessary, we stand ready to engage with the government in order to seek further clarification, reworking or change as required.
So Donaldson there saying his party is going to take some time to consider it. The other principal political parties in Northern Ireland also saying the same, that they will consider this over the coming days. Not quite clear how long that will take, but that will be the real acid test of whether the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has got this right.
That was Nick Robertson reporting. Political parties in Northern Ireland will review the deal over the next few days. The death toll of that migrant tragedy off Italy's southern coast has now risen to at least 63. Rescue crews recovered several more bodies on Monday, with dozens more still missing. The wooden boat set off from Turkey last week carrying about 170 people. It then broke up in stormy seas, leaving only 80 survivors. Coast Guard vessels, border police, helicopters, and specialized divers are searching for the remaining migrant passengers. It's a week of mourning in Los Angeles as Catholics continue to honor Bishop David O'Connell, who was killed in his home more than a week ago. A normally bright event, the annual LA Religious Education Congress, was overshadowed by people of faith mourning the beloved auxiliary bishop.
Bishop David O'Connell.
This special prayer service for Bishop Dave was held Sunday, featuring Irish prayers and music, images of the auxiliary bishop throughout his life, and testimonies from the people who knew him. Bishop O'Connell was set to speak at the Congress, but the event was later canceled. Instead, speakers frequently talked about him, and a book of remembrance was set up for Bishop O'Connell so people can write prayers and condolences that will be presented to his family during his funeral on Friday. And here are those services for Bishop O'Connell. Tomorrow, there will be a memorial mass. Again, that's on Wednesday, March 1st at St. John Vianney Catholic Church in Hacienda Heights. On Thursday, March 2nd, a public viewing will take place at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels. And at that same location will be the funeral on Friday, March 3rd. A nighttime vigil on Thursday, and the funeral itself will be live streamed. Currents News will be on the ground in Los Angeles. Myself, as well as Michelle Powers, will be covering Bishop O'Connell's memorial mass and funeral mass. Plus, we will have exclusive coverage on how the late auxiliary bishop changed the streets of Los Angeles. That'll be from Wednesday to Friday, right here on Currents News. Over in our nation's capital, gun violence is on the rise. Last year, there were over 2,200 violent crimes that involved a gun. That's a 40% jump from 2017. Over 3,100 guns were seized in 2022, which is about 800 more than the year prior. And homicides exceeded 200 for the second year in a row. With the uptick in violence, there are pleas for extra help, and a group that's well known here in New York, the Guardian Angels, is heeding the call. As Rafael Sanchez Cruz shows us, they're focusing on areas that need it most, like the D.C. metro area.
The Guardian Angels are patrolling the metro just to be a deterrent. That's it. We're hoping that if we're on the train and some young people decide they want to get into a fight, they see the Guardian Angels, they'll call out.
But if they don't, John Ayala, chief of the D.C. Guardian Angels, says his members are ready to step in.
We are ones that's not going to hesitate to go in, break them up, send them on their way. and hopefully they'll have a good night. If it gets a little more rougher than that, then of course we're going to notify Metro Transit, because our job is just to be an extra pair of eyes and ears for them, because they can't be everywhere.
The volunteer group focused on crime prevention has patrolled Metro on and off since they arrived in the district in 1989.
Just here just to be a deterrent and protect everyone and make sure that the communities are getting better.
But they're ramping up their efforts following the recent rise in violence on the transit system.
People are complaining that they don't see enough transit police and they don't feel safe. Now they are out here. I see them.
Transit police has increased their patrolling during its busiest time, and following the February 1st shooting that left 2 injured and 1 Metro worker dead at the Potomac Metro station, Mayor Bowser announced that D.C. police officers would be patrolling alongside Metro Transit police at 5 of the stations with the most crime and complaints. Ayala says his team is focusing on the Green Line, where he sees the most issues.
So our goal is just to help with that void that sometimes you might see guardian angels, sometimes you might see police.
This Metro rider says having people that know the community is key to de-escalate dangerous situations.
Get comfortable with dealing with the people and stuff, understanding them.
That was Rafael Sanchez Cruz reporting. Crime usually rises as the weather warms up, so the Guardian Angels are hoping to sign up more volunteers to help them patrol the area by springtime. There's a lot more news headed your way. Preserve the past for the future. The volunteer that's keeping history alive at Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Astoria. Tracking the weather for 60 years. The woman that's assisting the government by keeping accurate records. Helping others through adversity. The man without any legs that's helping his neighbors tackle a snowstorm. If you're ever looking for a Mass in Vietnamese or Spanish or even Czech, you don't have to look any further than Astoria, Queens. Our Lady of Mount Carmel is a true representation of the Diocese of Brooklyn. It's been around a long time, and as Currents News' Christine Persichetti reports, one parishioner is working hard to bring its rich history into the future. She is the pulse of the parish.
It is one of the most diverse parishes in the Diocese of Immigrants.
When I came here, I said, the whole world exists in my parish.
So there are masses in 5 languages every Sunday at Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Astoria: English, Spanish, Italian, Vietnamese, and Czech.
People speak all kinds of languages. People have different stories. People come with so much richness, cultural and religious and societal. And to have all of that in one single religious body, my family, my spiritual family, it's a great feeling.
Fortunately, the pastor, Monsignor Quang Pham, is multilingual. And the church has the equipment and the people to live stream each and every one of those masses.
Here are my shots.
People like Neda Martinez, who volunteers as the church's director of communications.
We're looking at the Solemnity of the Immaculate Conception Mass.
She not only live streams every mass and special event, she's in charge of the church's social media pages, a post she doesn't take lightly.
It's a way to get young people. You know, we don't bring young people in, we have no church. That's our way of evangelization. It's not just going to Mass, but going to Mass and then jumping off from that point to meeting your fellow parishioners.
Our Lady of Mount Carmel is considered the mother church of Queens County. It's been around since the 1840s.
These are all the sacramental registers we have.
So another job Neda has taken on is to digitize all of the sacramental registers.
These are the records that I'm trying to preserve.
It's a lot of work to scan and transcribe all of the data, everything handwritten.
That was a pen dipped in ink.
A project
1888, 1902.
Years in the making.
That's the history of the parish.
To preserve the past for the future.
There are some pages that have been damaged. That's why the less handling, the better.
These are difficult things to figure out.
It's not an easy process, and on a volunteer basis, it's even more difficult.
But taking 2 centuries worth of church history on these pages and making them accessible with just the click of a mouse has helped Nada combine her 2 passions, technology and faith.
Everything I do is for the greater good of the glory of God, of course, but for the greater good of the parish. Anything that helps the parish, I'll be there.
And now you know Nada Martinez from Our Lady of Mount Carmel and how she makes up the pulse of the parish.
That was Christine Persichetti reporting. Aside from her Director of Communications duties, Nada is also a Eucharistic minister, lector, faith formation teacher, and she helps coordinate the annual Catholic Appeal. Oh, and she also has a full-time job outside of the church. A pilgrimage of faith is underway for people of Brooklyn and Queens, and best of all, you're invited. The Diocese of Brooklyn's Lenten pilgrimage is in full swing, with Bishop Brennan and his flock experiencing the Catholic faith in a new way. They've been visiting new parishes every day, growing closer to God through services such as masses and adorations, discovering the history of various churches, and so much more. But if you're feeling left out, don't worry, there's still time to join. Even though the pilgrimage kicked off on Ash Wednesday, they will continue visiting different parishes every day for the 40-day span except Sundays and experience the beauty of church and community. All 22 diocesan deaneries are taking part, and each day will offer people different ways to connect with their faith, including Mass, confessions, rosaries, and much more. Have questions or feel iffy about attending? Here's Bishop Robert Brennan's advice about joining this year's Lenten pilgrimage.
Take the opportunity to go where it's most local to you, or even better, if you can make a couple or even all of the visits. There's a great opportunity for us as pilgrims on the journey to walk with Christ, who walks with us.
Bishop Brennan added that the churches are special places of pilgrimage and adoration. So to sign up for updates about the pilgrimage and find resources to help you along the way, just go to dioceseofbrooklyn.org/Lenten pilgrimage. Public libraries in North Dakota are speaking out, criticizing 2 bills that could ban the Bible. The problem lies in the way the legislation is written. The bills prohibit libraries from displaying sexually explicit books and accessing obscene content online. But according to critics, the way they write about what they want to ban is too vague, saying that, for example, one section, which talks about the written description of nudity, would lead to a ban of the Bible. The state's legislative session is currently on break, but people are still being asked to reach out to lawmakers to oppose the bills. Across the nation, from New York to California, people have been experiencing freezing temperatures and winter storms. But did you know the way meteorologists know the weather in every community is because of people like you? A nationwide network of 7,500 volunteers track the weather conditions for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Jim Keithley tells us about one of the most experienced weather watchers, Arlene Coles, who has been tracking weather for 6 decades.
She exemplifies the modern term work from home. She's been collecting weather information since 1965 as an official weather observer for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
May 13th, 1965.
And what was the temperature?
The temperature, the high was 62, the low was 43, and when I read it, it was 59. This is the first book I ever had.
1965.
Yeah.
I was a year old.
Well, a lot of people weren't very old then.
It's an easy job, she says. She can just glance out her kitchen window to see how much snow is on the ground. There's a giant ruler in clear view.
6 inches right now. 6 inches of snow on the ground.
That's what we got.
That's what the stake says.
She decided long ago to take her official readings at dinner time, 5 o'clock sharp. Just become a routine, just like setting a table, she said. She collects the rain and snow from these metal cylinders.
And then I measure it and put it in the book.
And at the end of each month, Arlene will mail her findings to NOAA, as she's done for 57 years. When I asked her, why don't you email them? Here's what she said about that.
I don't have email.
Why not?
I don't like it. It's one more thing to get mixed. I always am fighting with that computer.
Arlene says she'll continue to do the job until she can't anymore. Do you ever want to retire?
I told them that when I couldn't do a good job, I would retire.
And here you are at 92.
I don't know. I take a day at a time. At my age, it's foolish to pretend you'll be here next year.
Something tells me she's going to be around for a while. She still drives to the store and treks through her front yard for a job she still loves.
That was Jim Keithley reporting. Arlene says she does this because she finds weather interesting. And the reason she hasn't decided to move to someplace warm like Florida is because she likes the snow. Still to come on Currents News, helping your neighbor, the man who, despite not having legs, is keeping people safe. A rare occurrence, snow in Southern California, and it's causing some major problems. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Here's something you don't see too often: snow and ice covering San Bernardino County. That's in Southern California. Not only are some people stranded in their cars, they can't get gas or find essentials like baby formula. There's a state of emergency in effect to get federal aid. But even though a lot of people need help ASAP, residents feel like they're not a priority.
We're just out here on our own, and usually by now plows come by. It just seems like we're being forgotten about.
Crews are working around the clock to clear the snow and get resources to people. For others across the country, snow like that is a common occurrence. And as Andy Madison shows us, despite being disabled, one man is helping his neighbors get through the snow safely and is going above and beyond to help others first.
A couple days ago, a lady posted that she was hoping people would do a little bit better job of shoveling and that she had fallen down. And I was dismayed to see that some people had actually called her a Karen.
Matt Felton knows all too well how challenging it can be when snow and ice aren't cleaned up after a storm.
Well, it's just frustrating because people just can't relate, I guess. And it's just frustrating when people, are really quick to spout out something when I know for a fact if their situation were to change like mine did, they would be talking a different story.
5 years ago, he said both of his legs were blown off in a freak accident.
I could hop over snowbanks just fine. I would never even think of something like this.
Matt and his service dog Luna worked their way down KK Street in Bayview.
Luna here, she pulls my wheelchair all over the place.
Cleaning up spots that haven't been touched after the storm this past week.
Maybe people see this and they realize that we're all in the community, we're all in this together. And there's a lot of people that have the ability to get out there and do stuff like this to help other people out.
I can help out.
I'll be going down KK after we're done with this.
And along came the help.
A bunch of people came down and helped, and when I first showed up, people saw me doing it and they offered to take a shovel and help out too, so people have been very, very responsive. It's been great.
An engaged citizen, not trying to raise a fuss, just raising awareness, hoping more people will do their part to help keep sidewalks accessible for all.
I was once like that too, and I think if people just have more of an understanding of, hey, this could happen to me. So I don't want to get on anybody's case about it. I just want people to want to help.
Andy Madison, Currents News.
It may be snowy in parts of the country, but our nation's capital will look beautiful soon. The famous cherry blossom trees in D.C. may make an early appearance this year. The reason temperatures are well above average, and the warmer air is causing the trees to bud earlier than usual. A full bloom may happen as much as 10 days earlier than usual. So if you're planning a visit, the earliest peak bloom on record was on March 15th in 1990, and experts believe it'll be around the same time this year. And that is Currents News. I'm Jessica Easthope. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.